Hello, Breakout Honor students. Mrs. Myers here. We are taking a look at just one problem today, and you're going to have just one problem to do for homework today, and then on Thursday, only one or two problems to do because I know that you guys have your AP exams coming up, so keeping this to a minimum this week here. So we've already talked about Gaussian-Jordan elimination, which is getting your augmented matrix into reduced echelon form. Now we're just going to do a practice with it, with that idea again, but with a 4x4 matrix, and you're just going to have one 4x4 matrix to do for homework. Okay, so hopefully this won't take too long. So just as a quick reminder here, the augmented matrix is where you are using the coefficients of each variable and the constants that are right at the equal sign. So your first row is going to be 3, 2, -1, 1, 0. And of course, I'm not going to call out what each number is for each of the next rows. I think that's a fairly easy thing for you guys to do. So why don't you just go ahead and write it yourself. And if I get done before you, then just pause the video, okay, until you're done. All right, so here's the thing with reduced echelon form, right, for Gaussian-Jordan elimination is you want to envision where that diagonal of ones is going to be. And of course, I just almost mistakenly included that value in there. Okay, so this right here is what eventually will be a diagonal of ones. So you want to get zeros below and zeros above. Okay, that's what your reduced row echelon form is going to look like. So we're not going to do one at a time now, okay? Please don't do one at a time. It's going to take you way longer to do your homework than I want it to be, and that would take us a lot longer to do this problem as well. So we're going to go one column at a time, okay? We're going to get all the zeros in that one column, working below the diagonal first, and then we're going to go and swoop around and do all the zeros one column at a time above. Now, the thing that you have to remember, okay, as you're getting your next matrix here, especially in the very, very beginning, is that every row has to be used, okay? So we're going to write that down. Use every row at least once, okay? And also in the very beginning and every single time, no matter what, okay, is when you're working within getting a bunch of zeros within a column, is don't repeat row operation statements. Okay, so in other words, just make sure you use row 1 at least one time. You're obviously going to use rows 2, 3, and 4 at least one time, just trying to get those spots to be zeros. But just make sure you also use row 1, okay? So I'm going to start off by doing these two ones together to get this spot to become a 0. So let me copy down the first row here as is. Be very careful about that. Don't make any copying errors, okay? So I'm going to go with row 2 plus negative row 4. All right, so 1 and -1 will give me the 0, okay? -1 and -1 will give me a -2. -1 and -2 will give me a -3. No. Yeah. Okay. And then, no, I'm sorry, 4 minus 1. Sorry about that. That'll give me a +3. Sorry about that. And then 2 and -1 will give me a 1. And then 25 and -6 gives me a 19. All right. Now when it comes here to getting this spot to become a 0, I'm going to do twice row 2 plus row 3. Okay, so just figured it'd be very easy to get that spot to become a 0. So if I just do 2 times 1, that's +2. Added with the -2, there's the 0. So if I keep going across the row, using each column, so it's 2 times -1, which is -2, plus 1 is -1. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 2 more is 10. 2 times 2 is 4, and -1 is 3. 2 times 25 is 50, plus 2 more is 52. And now when it comes here to this spot, see, I have to remember now I have not used row 1 yet. So now I'm going to come here and I will do 3 row 1. Sorry about that. I will do row 1 plus -3 row 4. Okay, so row 1, which is 3, added with -3 times 1, which is -3. There's my 0. Okay, and then I just go, 2 and -3 makes -1. -1 and -3 makes -4. 1 and -3 makes a -2, and then 0 and -18, there would be my -18, okay? So again, keeping in mind that this is where I'm going to need that diagonal of 1s to eventually be. Now I'm going to get these spots to become 0s, okay? Now, continuing here with this work, okay, I'm going to recopy the first 2 rows as is, because I'm not going to do anything there. Right, just be very careful recopying. And I want to get these rows to become 0s. Now at this point, I'm not going to use every row again. So this statement doesn't hold true anymore. Now as far as don't repeat row operation statements, that just means that, if you want to use, let's say row 3 and the negation of row 4 to get this spot to become a 0, which obviously that would work, then you're not going to have the exact same row operation statement here. And you're not even going to just do negative row 3 plus row 4 either. You're not going to use the same 2 rows again, okay? You want to make sure, though, that here's an important thing, though, is that you keep the 0s that you got. Okay, which means I don't want this 0 here in this first column to go away. So I'm only going to use another row that has a 0 in that same first column. So I'm not going to use row 1 now. Okay, it's okay. I already used row 1 before. I don't need to worry about keeping it used every time, but I do want to keep those 0s. Okay, so now I'm going to do row 2 and -2 row 4. Okay, so these 0s, okay, will still leave me with a 0 here. And then obviously -2 plus +2 will then be a 0, okay? So let's just do the computation. So again, row 3 and the negation of row 4, so there's the 0, okay? This is now going to become 0. This is 10 minus -4, so that's really 14. This is 3 minus -2, so that's now 5. And then this is 52 minus -18, so it's 70. And then here, this is row 2 and -2 row 4, so using those 0s stays 0. That's going to become a 0. And then I just keep going. So we got 3 and 8 is going to make this be 11. I got 1 and 4 is going to make that become a 5. And now here I've got 19 and 36. All right. So at this point, that's not too bad to do in your head. Okay. But you should have your handy calculator ready. Okay. For when the numbers start getting a little bit bigger, which that'll happen. So don't worry about that. Okay. Anyway, let's envision. I think I made that a smidge too small. Hang on. Yeah, you don't want to make it too small and have your numbers be like all smushy, okay? So anyway, let's just envision again where that diagonal of 1s is eventually going to be. And now I want to get that spot, okay, where that 11 is. That's what I want to get to become a 0 now. So keep those 0s. So you see how I have 2 0s here? Okay, I want to keep those 0s when I'm trying to get this to become a 0. So I'm only going to use row 3. I have to, okay? I have to use row 3. So let's recopy everything down. Okay, from the first 3 rows, because nothing in those rows is changing. Be very careful as you copy everything down, okay? And now it's gotta be, right, 11 times what's in row 3, as well as 14 times what's in row 4. But seeing as how these are both positive, you gotta decide which one you want to multiply to be a negative. So of course it really doesn't matter which one, so I'm just going to make the 14 be multiplied by a negative. So what's really nice is 0s, right? That's going to stay 0s. This is now going to become a 0. So I just have 2 things to worry about, okay? So 11 times the 5, that's the 55, right? Negative 14 times the 5, that's the negative 70. So that would be a negative 15. Okay? And now I got to do this. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and put that in my calculator because I don't think I want a chance doing that in my head. So I'm going to go with the 11 times 70, okay, plus negative 14 times the 55. Oh, and that just so happens to be 0. Okay, now what I'm going to suggest we do at this time, okay, see where this diagonal of 1s is going to be, is I'm going to suggest we get this to become a 0. All right, reason being is because there's so many 0s in row 4, I'm going to use that a lot, okay? So I am going to take the time, here I'm going to smush this down at the bottom here because I'm not going to really do too much, okay? I'm going to take the time to get that entry to become a 1, and that's going to make the numbers, this number just a little bit easier to use. in future calculation. Okay, you'll see, you'll believe me that this really is a good thing to do. So row 4 divided by negative 15, so now I got 0, 0, 0, 1, and then of course 0 divides by anything, this will be 0. So, I know what my W value is, right? So remember, first column was X's, then Y's, then the Z's, then the W's. So now I know what my W value is, okay? So I'm going to come back up here. All right, I'm just going to come back up here to the top to ensure that I have enough room to do this problem. Okay, I'm going to recopy every row very carefully. Okay, again, envision where that diagonal of ones is going to eventually be. You really don't have to circle them each and every time, okay? But it's just, I think it's helpful to do that. So now I'm going to get these spots to all become zeros, okay? And I just want to make sure that I keep whatever zeros I have in each row as I'm working with it, okay? So I'm not going to do anything with this bottom row. Okay, and even though, when I get to when I'm looking right here at this first row, I don't have any zeros to keep, so I really could use any of the other rows. And in row 2, I only have this first 0 to keep, so I really could use either of these 2 rows. I'm just going to use row 4 every time, because look how easy these numbers are to use, right? So I'm going to just go with row 1 and the negation of row 4. So I'll automatically make that become a 0. Okay, then I'm going to do row 2 plus the negation of row 4, because again, okay, that'll make that a 0. And then I'm going to go with row 3 plus negative 5, row 4, because that'll make that become a 0. Okay, so as long as you keep this row the same, see, I didn't want to do the negation of row 1 plus row 4, although that would have been totally fine. Again, I could have done the negation of row 2 plus row 4, that would have been totally fine. But given that this is all the zeros, it doesn't matter, you don't get anything different when you negate the zeros. So just keep this row the same. So it's 3 plus the negation of 0, well, that stays 3. 2 plus the negation of 0, that stays 2. Negative 1 plus the negation of 0, that stays negative 1. Now that becomes a 0, right? And then 0, well, they happen to have 2 zeros, so that still stays 0. Right? And then again, it's row 2, you kept that the same, plus the negation of row 4, so right, that stays 0. Negative 2 plus 0, 3 plus 0, 1 plus negative 1, and then 19 and negative negation of 0, so that stays 19, okay? And one more, so row 3 plus negative 5 row 4, so that stays 0, that stays 0. 14 plus a negation of negative 5 times 0, well, that just stays 14. 5 and negative 5, that becomes 0. See how little calculation work there is to do? It's a lot easier now, right? And then it just so happens that, 70, and then this is a 0, is going to stay the 70. So just as I said before, right, this is where we're eventually going to get the diagonal of ones. I'm going to suggest that we use a row division statement to get that to become a 1. Now, you're not going to get zeros and do a row division statement at the same time. So we're just going to go row 3 divided by 14, okay? So we're going to recopy the first row. Okay, we're going to recopy the second row. We're going to do that row division with the third row, and 70 divided by 14 is 5. And we're going to recopy the fourth row. And now, not only do I know what W is, but I know what Z is. Okay, and look how nice and easy these numbers are to work with, okay? So again, this will eventually be my diagonal of ones. Now I'm going to get those to become zeros, okay? All right, so I'm going to recopy the fourth row and the third row. And now I'm going to just look at the fact that I have zeros here in this fourth column that actually now preclude me from using row 4 because I've got a non-zero number there, okay? So whereas before I really wanted to use row 4, now I'm not going to use row 4 or else those zeros won't stay zeros, okay? But I am going to use row 3 though. So this is now going to be a very easy row for me to use. That's kind of why I thought that row division statement, was worthy of us doing, because look how much smaller the numbers are to work with, okay? So we're going to do row 1 and row 3. We're just going to add those together. Okay, so that's going to become 3 and 0, which is 3, 2 and 0, which is 2. Okay, negative 1 and 1, which is 0, 0 and 0 is 0, and 0 and 5 is 5. And then, okay, I'm going to use row 2 and the negation of 3, row 3 to get this become 0. I really could have, done rows 1 and 2 together, but I like using rows 2 and 3 better because row 3 is a lot more zeros to work with, okay? So row 2 and negative 3, row 3, okay? So those stay zeros, negative 2 plus 0 is going to stay the negative 2. This is going to become the 0. Those zeros stay a 0. And now it's just 19 and negative 15, which is 4. Right? And once again, I'm going to eventually want this to become a diagonal of 1s. And I'm going to take the time to do this row division. I really don't have to do that here, but I'm going to just do that anyways. And all right, so we got 3, 2, 0, 0, 5. I'm going to do row 2 divided by negative 2, so 0, 1, 0, 0, negative 2. And 0, 0, 1, 0, 5, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. Okay, and so one more thing to do. Okay, I'm going to get that spot to become a 0. Okay, so that has 2 zeros here in that row columns 3 and 4. So I have to use row 2 because I got to keep those zeros. So I'm going to go with row 1 and negative 2, row 2. And that is going to be 3. Say a 3, that's going to become a 0, 0, 0. And then here, this is 5 and negative, 5 and negative 2 times negative 2, meaning 5 and 4, and that is 9. And this is 0, 1, 0, 0, negative 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 5, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. And so the last thing to do, remember I'm trying to get this to become a diagonal of 1s, so I got to get that to become a 0. So unfortunately I got to go to the back here, but that's just going to be 1, 0, 0, 3. So let me write that down. Okay, so it's row 1 divided by 3, so it's 1, 0, 0, and then, oops, another 0. And then there's my 3. And then I had before 0, 1, 0, 0, and this was a negative 2. I had 0, 0, 1, 0, and that was a 5, and 0, 0, 0, 1, and then that was a 0, okay? So now I just have to look at this and go, all right, my very first variable was the x, right? So come back over here, right? So it was x's, then y's, then z's, then w's, right? So that's what this is. These are the x's, y's, z's, and then w's finally, right? So now I know x is 3, y is negative 2, z is 5, and then w is 0, and then that's it. Right now I got my solution because I got my matrix into reduced row echelon form, and so there's basically just the solutions there in my face, okay? So I know it took us a little while to do it together. It's kind of going slow, talking about different things that we needed to remember, but you just doing this on your own, really, I think it should hopefully go pretty quickly, and it's just the one problem that you're going to do for the homework, and that's it. All right, hope all is well, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.